Manhattan, 2018. The 62nd floor of One World Trade Center. A $3 billion merger on the table. A white billionaire CEO walks into the boardroom. Designer suit, confident smile. He's done this 1,000 times. He shakes hands with every person around that mahogany table. The investment bankers, the corporate lawyers, the financial advisors, one by one. Firm grips, eye contact. Good to see you. Then he reaches her. Keisha Washington, Yale Law, former federal prosecutor. Now the deputy director of the Securities and Exchange Commission, the woman who had the final say on whether his deal would go through. She stands, extends her hand. Professional? Polished. He looks at her hand, then at her face. His smile tightens. And then, right there, in front of everyone, he pulls his hand back, adjusts his cufflink, and says, "Let's get started." No handshake, no acknowledgement, just nothing. The room goes silent. One of the investment bankers leaned toward his colleague and whispered, "Did he just—" before catching himself and going quiet. An SEC attorney's pen stopped mid-note. But Keisha's face? Completely still. Because in that moment, she heard her mother's voice from all those years ago, riding that bus home from what he didn't know. That single moment of disrespect would unravel his entire empire. Because Keisha Washington wasn't just any regulator. She was a woman who had spent her entire life being underestimated, and she had learned to turn that underestimation into a weapon. Hit that subscribe button, because this is the true story of how one handshake, or the lack of it, cost a billionaire everything. Let me take you back to where Keisha's story really begins. Atlanta, Georgia, 1985. Keisha Washington was born in the West End, back when the neighborhood was still struggling with the aftermath of white flight and economic disinvestment. Her daddy worked construction. Her mama cleaned houses in Buckhead, the wealthy white neighborhood where the homes cost more than her family would make in 10 lifetimes. Every day after school, young Keisha would ride the bus with her mother to those Buckhead mansions. While her mama scrubbed toilets and mopped floors, Keisha would sit in the kitchen doing her homework, overhearing conversations about stock portfolios, country clubs, and good schools. She remembers one moment like it was yesterday. She was 9 years old, sitting at that kitchen table, when the lady of the house walked in with her daughter, a blonde girl about Keisha's age. "Oh, how cute," the woman said, looking at Keisha like she was a puppy. "Your mother's daughter is doing her schoolwork here? That's so sweet." Then she turned to her own daughter and said within earshot, "This is why Mommy always tells you how lucky you are, honey. Some children have to come to work with their parents." Keisha's mother kept her eyes down, kept cleaning. But that night, on the bus ride home, she looked at her daughter and said something Keisha would never forget. "Baby, they gon' always try to make you feel small. But you know what? When you get your education, when you get in those rooms where decisions get made, you make damn sure they remember your name." So Keisha studied, harder than anyone. Full scholarship to Spelman College. Then Yale Law School, one of only 7 black women in her class. Then the U.S. Attorney's Office, where she prosecuted white-collar crime in the Southern District of New York. And she was good. Really good. By 35, she'd put away corporate fraudsters, insider traders, and Wall Street criminals who thought they were untouchable. Her conviction rate was 94%. They called her the Hammer in the financial district. But the disrespect never stopped. Defense attorneys would call her aggressive when she asked tough questions, but called their white male colleagues thorough. Judges would interrupt her arguments, but let white prosecutors speak uninterrupted. One senior partner once asked her, in front of the entire office, if she was really qualified for a complex securities case. She smiled through it all, took notes, and kept winning. Then in 2017, she got the call. The SEC wanted her as Deputy Director of Enforcement, the person who could investigate and shut down billion-dollar financial crimes. She accepted immediately because Keisha had learned something that powerful people never expected. The person they dismiss is often the person they should fear most. Now let me introduce you to James Robert Ashford IV, New England old money. His family tree read like American aristocracy: steel barons, railroad tycoons, investment bankers who'd shaped Wall Street for 5 generations. James went to Andover, then Yale, legacy admission, then Harvard Business School. Never had to apply for a job in his life. His father's friends always had a seat waiting for him. By 45, he was the CEO of Ashford Capital Group, a conglomerate that owned everything from luxury hotels to pharmaceutical companies to media outlets. His personal net worth? $6.7 billion. His ego? Immeasurable. He collected companies like some people collect stamps. And he was good at it. Or at least, he was good at making it look like he was good at it. But here's what the business press didn't report. Ashford Capital Group was a house of cards held together by creative accounting and shady offshore structures. For 3 years, James had been cooking the books, inflating property values by 40%, hiding debt in offshore shell companies, using fake transactions to boost quarterly earnings, paying himself $100 to $80 million in performance bonuses, while the company was actually losing money. He thought he was untouchable. His lawyers were the best money could buy. His accountants knew every loophole. And he had friends in high places, senators, governors, even a few federal judges. But in late 2017, the SEC opened a preliminary investigation into Ashford Capital Group. Nothing formal yet, just questions about certain accounting irregularities. James wasn't worried. He'd dealt with regulators before. A few meetings, some paperwork, maybe a small fine. Business as usual. Then Keisha Washington took over the case. His lawyers assured him it was nothing. She's new to the SEC, they said. She's a former prosecutor, not a finance expert. This is just about optics, showing they're tough on corporate crime. We'll handle it. What they didn't know? Keisha had been studying his empire for 9 months, and she'd found the thread that would unravel everything. January 23, 2018, One World Trade Center, 9:47 a.m. The meeting was supposed to be a formality. James's lawyers had requested an informal discussion with the SEC to address any concerns before the investigation went further. James treated it like a networking event. He showed up with an entourage, 6 lawyers from 3 different firms, his CFO, his head of investor relations, all of them confident, all of them sure this would be over by lunch. The SEC conference room was standard government issue, fluorescent lights, cheap carpet, a long table that had seen 1,000 similar meetings. Keisha was already there, sitting at the head of the table. 3 SEC attorneys with her. Stacks of documents in front of each person. Labeled binders, post-it notes everywhere. James walked in 15 minutes late. Didn't apologize. He worked the room like he was at a country club mixer. shaking hands. Big smile. That easy old money charm that had opened doors his entire life. Tom, good to see you again. We golfed together last summer, right? Sarah, how's that case going? I heard you just closed it. Mike, great tie. Where'd you get it? Then he got to Keisha. She stood up, extended her hand. Her posture was perfect. Years of her mother telling her, "Stand up straight, baby. Make them see you." Mr. Ashford, I'm Keisha Washington, Deputy Director of... He cut her off, looked at her hand like it was contaminated. His eyes traveled from her hand to her face, and for just a split second, you could see it. The calculation, the disdain, the dismissal. He pulled his hand back, adjusted his cufflink, smoothed his tie. "Let's get started," he said, sitting down in the chair across from her. "I've got a board meeting at noon." The room froze. One of his own lawyers, a young associate, looked mortified. An SEC attorney raised her eyebrows, but no one said anything, because that's how power works. The billionaire sets the tone, and everyone else falls in line, except Keisha. She didn't flinch, didn't look away. She simply sat back down, opened the binder in front of her, and said in a voice calm as Sunday morning, "Mr. Ashford, I have some questions about Cayman Offshore Entity 17. His smile faltered. Here's what James didn't know. Keisha had spent 9 months building a federal case so airtight it was practically gift-wrapped. While his lawyers thought this was a preliminary inquiry, Keisha had been running a full criminal investigation. Subpoenas, forensic accountants, international cooperation with financial regulators in 7 countries. She had 847 pages of fraudulent financial statements, emails proving he personally ordered the accounting fraud, testimony from 3 whistleblowers inside his company, bank records showing $2.3 billion in hidden liabilities, evidence of insider trading on 14 separate occasions, proof he'd lied to investors, regulators, and his own board. Any one of these charges could put him in prison. All of them together? He was looking at 25 to 40 years. But she was a professional. She'd come to this meeting to give him one chance, one opportunity to cooperate. Maybe cut a deal. Maybe avoid criminal charges if he agreed to dismantle his company and return the stolen money. And then he refused to shake her hand. That's when Keisha decided, no deals, no mercy. She was going to dismantle him piece by piece. And it started with one simple question. The meeting continued. James tried to control the room like he always did. Confident deflections, vague answers, letting his lawyers jump in. But Keisha was surgical. "Mr. Ashford, in Q3 2016, you reported $340 million in pharmaceutical revenue. But according to the FDA records we subpoenaed, only $89 million in actual drugs were shipped. Can you explain the $251 million discrepancy?" James chuckled. "That's a complex accounting question. My CFO can... I'm asking you, Mr. Ashford. You personally signed the financial disclosure, so I need you to explain it." His CFO started to speak. Keisha held up her hand. "No, Mr. Ashford will answer." The temperature in the room dropped, question after question, each one more devastating than the last. Why does Cayman Entity 17 show $800 million in assets that don't appear on your consolidated balance sheet? This email, sent from your personal account, instructs your CFO to adjust the Miami property valuation upward. Investors are asking questions. Can you explain what you meant by adjust? You paid yourself a $180 million bonus while your company lost $430 million that same year. How do you justify that to your shareholders? By question 12, James was sweating. His lawyers were whispering frantically, passing notes. One of them asked for a 15-minute recess. No, Keisha said. We'll continue. James lost his temper. Listen, sweetheart. He leaned forward with that condescending tone that powerful white men always use when they're cornered. I don't know what kind of crusade you're on here, but I've been building companies since you were in grade school. These are complex financial structures that... Keisha cut him off. Mr. Ashford, my name is Deputy Director Washington, not Sweetheart, and I have a law degree from Yale, a decade of prosecuting financial crimes, and 847 pages of evidence that you committed securities fraud. So let me be very clear about what happens next. She stood up, looked him directly in the eyes. The Securities and Exchange Commission is formally filing charges against you and Ashford Capital Group for securities fraud, wire fraud, and making false statements to federal regulators. We are freezing $3.2 billion in assets effective immediately. We are referring your case to the Department of Justice for criminal prosecution, and we are recommending your company be delisted from the New York Stock Exchange. The room went silent. You can't do this, one of his lawyers sputtered. We have rights. You have 48 hours to comply with the asset freeze, Keisha continued, her voice never rising. After that, we will seek contempt charges. This meeting is over. She closed her binder, walked out. James sat there, his face pale, as his entire world began to collapse in real time. But what happened next was even more devastating. Within 6 hours, the news broke. Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, CNBC. SEC files fraud charges against billionaire James Ashford. His stock plummeted 67% before trading was halted. His board held an emergency meeting and forced him to resign. His investors filed a class action lawsuit. His banks started calling in loans. The criminal investigation uncovered even more fraud. A $900 million tax evasion scheme, bribing foreign officials, money laundering through Luxembourg, insider trading that made him $340 million in illegal profits. James Robert Ashford IV, the billionaire who wouldn't shake a black woman's hand, lost $3.2 billion in frozen assets. His company, forced into bankruptcy. His board seats at 7 corporations. His country club memberships, quietly revoked. His yacht, his private jet, his homes in Manhattan, Aspen, and the Hamptons. His freedom, sentenced to 19 years in federal prison. His legacy, the Ashford name removed from every building, scholarship, and foundation. But here's the most poetic part of this story. You know who bought the flagship Ashford Hotel in Manhattan at the bankruptcy auction? A real estate investment group led by 3 black women entrepreneurs, one from Atlanta, one from Chicago, one from Harlem. They renovated it, renamed it, turned it into a hub for black-owned businesses and minority entrepreneurs. Where James's portrait used to hang in the lobby, there's now a gallery featuring black artists. It's like he was erased from history. Today, Keisha Washington is the director of the SEC's Division of Enforcement. She's prosecuted 47 major financial crimes, recovered $8.6 billion for defrauded investors, and she's become a legend in the black legal community. Proof that excellence, preparation, and integrity will always triumph over arrogance. In interviews, She rarely discusses the James Ashford case. But when pressed, she says something that gives me chills every time. I didn't destroy James Ashford. He destroyed himself the moment he decided that fraud was acceptable. I just held him accountable. And if he had shaken my hand that day, the outcome would have been exactly the same. Because I don't do revenge, I do justice. But those who were in that conference room know the truth. That handshake wasn't just about personal disrespect. It was about generations of black women being dismissed, diminished, and disrespected in rooms where power gets decided. Keisha's mother, who cleaned those Buckhead mansions, she lived to see her daughter on the cover of Fortune magazine. Keisha's daughter, who's now at Harvard Law, she'll never have to wonder if she belongs in those rooms because her mother kicked down the doors. Your 7-word summary: she wasn't angry. She was just thorough. So the next time someone tells you to be professional when you're being disrespected, the next time someone says, don't be so sensitive when racism shows up in a boardroom, the next time someone tries to make you feel small because of the color of your skin, remember Keisha Washington. Remember that sometimes the most powerful response isn't emotion, it's competence, it's excellence. It's doing your job so well that the people who underestimated you have no choice but to watch their empire crumble. Hit that subscribe button if you believe in justice, accountability, and the power of Black excellence. Drop a comment if this story resonated with you. If you've ever been dismissed in a room where you were the most qualified person. If you've ever been underestimated and used it as fuel. Because these stories matter. These moments matter. And every time we tell them, we remind the world. You can refuse to shake our hands, but you can't refuse to respect our power. Until next time, remember, the people who won't shake your hand today might be the same people begging for mercy tomorrow. And you get to decide what justice looks like.